just let the song flow through you, and then it'll either work or it don't. But get it out of you, and then zoom out.
Hey, welcome back to Coffee with Composers. My name is Joe Chris, and today we are interviewing Neuman Jody Mannas. Neuman is a fantastic musician and composer who spent over 10 years on the road in bands, and now he's doing a lot more work in the studio. Recently, he worked on a film called Chapter 51, which has an awesome story that we get to in the video. Make sure to check that out, now available to rent or stream. And anyway, let's hop to it. Awesome. Thank you for joining me today, Neuman Jody Mannas. You have a new film coming out, Chapter 51, and I'm excited to talk with you about that today.
Oh, dude, thanks for having me. Nice to actually kind of meet in the real world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the trailer for this film went out yesterday with over 800,000 views.
It's stupid. Like he posted it, and then it kind of went around a bit, and then I was just looking at his YouTube, and I called him last night at like 11, and I was like, there's like 12,000 people have seen this, and he sends me a link to the Twitter link that had like 500,000. I was like, okay, that makes the 12 look small, even though we would have been stoked about the 12 anyway.
Yeah, for the people who are unaware, can you kind of tell us a little bit about Chapter 51?
Oh God, it's a trip. Yeah, essentially, so Tyler Shields is the writer, director, editor. He's in it as well, but it's essentially like it watches like true crime, but it's a comedy, and it's about making the highest grossing film ever made, Dissident. But while they're making it, someone starts killing the lead actresses, and they just keep replacing them, and everyone's insane, and everyone's fucking each other, and they're blowing up cars, and it's really quite fun.
What I love is the film itself, the story is about making this the most highest grossing film ever made. It's very ambitious, but also the creative process behind the film, you guys were really going with ambition, right?
It was crazy. Like, I showed up as composers do kind of late in the game, but I actually was on set probably 2 years before I got the gig as the composer, because I was just friends with someone who was in it. And so I show up, and I'm just watching what they're doing, and it's like they're rolling film, shooting improv, like like ripping through film, and I'm just like, this is the most fascinating thing I've ever seen. Like, before the scene, Tyler would just kind of whisper something in their ear, and then they would just go at it till they end up saying what he hoped they'd say. So like, these performances are so authentic, and the actors are hilarious. Like, it's just like, it's really entertaining to watch. The music was so fun to do, but like, anytime I describe how they made this movie, no one believes me, and I'm like, that's the fun part. People are gonna just call him a liar and fight about it.
That's crazy. So it's like, it's very improv heavy, kind of like Curb Your Enthusiasm. Like they're just kind of giving
like there wasn't really a script, but Tyler was just kind of hovering above everyone for 5 years, knowing exactly what he wanted to do in the long run.
That's awesome.
And dude, they shot on like 100-year-old hand crank cameras to like the IMAX 70 perf and everything in between, like VistaVision. Like, we were shooting on Hitchcock's old VistaVision camera, and then at some point, like, everyone in this thing, you just kind of get swallowed up by this movie, and then next thing I know, I'm in it. And so I go from like showing up as my friend's buddy just to say hello, 2 years later getting the gig as a composer, and then I'm hanging off a Defender with an M16 chasing a plane through the desert. It's like, it was wild.
That's crazy. I think I read somewhere that this is the first film to ever shoot in like every format ever, or something crazy like that.
Yeah, like Super 8, 16, 35, 70, the whole, everything that exists, it was used in this, which is like insane. It's just a crazy thing to do.
That's awesome. What was the music process like on this for such like a crazy, ambitious film?
It was a lot of just like passing it back and forth. Like, essentially, when I started doing, I was writing to picture, because that's what I was used to. It was my first feature, right? So I'd done a lot of short films, and a lot of those were comedies where, you kind of, the timing of the music and the joke is super important. So when I started, I was kind of trying to tee up these jokes a bit, and he was just like, you need to like slow down and zoom out and be like he's like, give me a 9-minute song that only does 3 things. And I'm like, there's no 9-minute sequence ever. And I just went for it, and I wrote the song I could have never written before otherwise. And all of a sudden, I got the pacing of the movie. And because it's so dense with jokes, and it's a lot of like talking head interviews. So there's so many cuts that if you try to tee them all up, there will be no momentum. So instead, we wrote these really long pieces that then he'd clip, 90 seconds from here or there. But I had to write these really long pieces to just get the pacing slow enough to make sense.
Interesting.
So honestly, it was super collaborative. Like, we talked every day, and him and I were both basically vampires. So I would send him something at 2 a.m, and then he'd FaceTime me back, and then we'd just talk about it. It was wonderful.
Interesting. And you said this was your first feature. How did you get this gig? Like, what was the process like for you going from short films to being on set to
Yeah.
scoring
Well,
it?
here's the biggest trip is, so whatever. I met him on set one day, and then essentially I just told him like, hey, like I'm a composer, I want to do this, and he already had somebody. And I said that's fine. And then I just politely bugged him for like 2 years to be like, just send me one scene, like send me a frame. Just like this was such a fascinating process to be on set for the one day. I was like, just let me do something for it. It's like I'll sign an NDA, like I don't care, just let me do something. To which I got no, no, no for like 2 years. And then he texted me and he's like, hey, can you come to IMAX headquarters on this day? It was like September 8th. I was like, yeah, like there's only one answer to that question. So I show up and we sit in the theater, uh, and I like, he sits right beside me, and I don't know this guy that well, but I was like, why sit where it sounds good? So he probably knows where it sounds good, and that's why he was sitting there. And then we watched the movie in like a full IMAX screen with like maybe 10 people there. Like Francis Fisher was there. It's a trip. I'm trying to pretend this is normal for me to be in rooms like that. And the movie starts, and it has music in it. So I assume he's just showing me, hey, like you came on set for a day. I just want to show you it. It's done. And the movie finishes. We're all talking in the lobby. Uh, and he basically pulls me aside and says, I'm scrapping all that music. And then I was like, oh, that's why I got invited here. So that was it. That was the day, man. And then I just
Awesome.
like dropped everything for 4 months and just dove in. It was the best.
Hell yeah. Now, your IMDb lists you as an actor on a bunch of projects. Is that how you were like, you were acting on this originally?
Um, no,
Like, how'd you
actually,
get involved?
I did the whole music. I did all the music first, and then we went to like we screened it at Lincoln Square, New York, City Walk in LA, the biggest screens in America, and then he just kept shooting. So
Nice.
one day he was like gonna go in the desert in some warehouse full of Ferraris and some plane that dropped bombs on Nazi subs, and I was like, "Can I come?" He's like, "Yeah," and then all of a sudden I'm in the movie.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Now, how did you get started in all of this? You were in bands. How did you transition from what was that like? And then how did you transition
Yeah.
from the band work to storing?
Yeah, so basically, like I've been in the rock and roll business forever. Like that was my first love. Was just when I was 13. I picked up a guitar and well, bass actually, um, and really just like I'd been tunnel vision since. And so pretty much 20 years of being in bands. I spent my 20s on the road. Um, had a great time, man. Like we had a number one song open for Guns N' Roses, and like we just like I did the tour thing hard. And then I slowly started just meeting filmmakers and being like, this seems really interesting and I want to do it. So I just started when I met actors or when I met filmmakers, I just told them like, hey, I want to score. And my friend Natalie Cerny, who I met in an acting class in Vancouver like a long time ago, and she made this beautiful short film Renaissance. And she tapped me to do the music for it. And then once I started doing it, I was like, this is incredible. Like what a gift to put music to picture, man. Uh, it's like nothing I'd ever done before. And then I just started walking around saying, hey, I do this. Moved to LA right before the plague. So then all of a sudden, like I move here, I'm like, I'm gonna tour my ass off. Like I got another 10 years in me. And then like it's illegal to go on tour all of a sudden. And I was like, ooh, I just moved to a big American mega city and I can't do my job. I'm gonna really lean into doing film music. And then some of that was for libraries, and then really just the phone started ringing, and I just started doing some short films, and some of those filmmakers leveled up into doing features, and my phone rang again. It was amazing.
Awesome. What is your creative process usually like when you start a film?
Oh, it's I'd like to pretend it's intellectual. It's fucking around, Joe. Like I just like to watch the whole. I literally just plug in a bunch of instruments. Like I'll turn on all the synths, plug in the guitar into the pedal board, and I'll just watch it, and I'll just walk around and tinker. And usually it's quite a bit of that before anything sticks. So just like improvising is always my favorite way to go. Like I find when I try to think too hard before, I get in my own way,
Mm.
and I've kind of always found that with songwriting for the band too. It's like just let the song flow through you, and then it'll either work or it don't. But get it out of you, and then zoom out. Versus I don't try to like get too granular while I'm making the first pass. It's really just like tonally what works. And then you might just hit a note when this character walks on and you're like, ooh, that's his note. But truly it's fucking around. It's great.
Hell yeah. When you're working are you thinking about any sort of like longer form structure, or you're really just like fucking around and just seeing what happens? Like, are you thinking?
The first pass, it's improv, and then really like then you start to understand. Okay, here's the arc of the story. Here's this arc of these characters, and then it gets to be a bit more of a planning stage. But the first pass, I really just like to hit record and just see what happens. And sometimes that ends up in the movie, sometimes it don't. Um, but if the worst case is you write some songs that you throw out, that's not wasted time, you know.
Absolutely. Now, you have some experience acting and directing. Do you feel that influences your approach to film music at all, or?
Yeah, I think it's just a different perspective. Like probably less the acting, more the directing and editing. Because like when you start thinking like an editor, because even most directors when you're shooting, I think if you're not the editor, you're thinking about that person because they're gonna either have a giant pile of problems or a beautiful laid out situation. Um, so yeah, when I try to think like an editor, it does help establish like what needs to happen going forward. You know, because then you can just put in little like hints, foreshadowing of what's going to happen, and hopefully it stays like just under in the subconscious of the viewer. You know.
Yeah. Now, this being your first feature, what sort of projects would you be trying to work towards in the future? Like, where do you kind of see yourself?
Oh man, it's going to be hard to do something as crazy because no one will ever make a movie like this again because it was insane behavior. Uh, and this thing just snowballed and got so big and crazy. Uh, I can't believe this is my first feature. Like I can't believe it. I feel so lucky. Um, but really, I'd love to do some horror, man. Spooky noise. I really enjoy. Like if you listen to the band at all, like we're called the Matchstick Skeletons, and it's pretty like spooky, groovy stuff. Um, so scary noise, I want to really lean in. And I just did a rom com, which was so fun. My friend Lauren Knoll directed it, and that was the one that got into South by. It's called Same Same but Different, and that was just like obviously a big. Basically, I did 3 features last year, and so Chapter 51 was kind of big, lush, old Hollywood romance, film noir type of sound. Candy Flip, which isn't out yet, but I hope this year. That was like a raging party drug movie. So like EDM, just like hammering electronica. And then Same but Different is a rom com with Iranian themes. So like it was quite a wide berth of what I did last year. But if I could lean into some spooky noise again, I'd be stoked.
Awesome. How do you find the transition from like more comedic stuff to the spookier things? Like, do you feel like there are similar headspaces for you, or?
No, I think you got to think like I think in general, even as like actors, I think people think comedy is easy. It's like that timing is so specific. And like when I moved here and started going to the comedy store, and you'll see the same person do the same joke a few months apart, and you look at how subtle those changes are in the wording and the timing, and then you get a huge laugh or no laugh, and it's like I just think you got to think a little bit harder when you're doing comedic timing. Like I'm doing a pilot right now, and the directors they're in New York and they're cool as hell, and they have really like specific ideas of these jokes that on my first pass, some of them I missed. And then they're like, no, like when he looks over there or when he picks up that thing, like you set that up. And all of a sudden we do, and it's a totally different scene and it's way funnier.
Mhm.
So I would say I'm more naturally good at making scary vibey shit, but maybe it's also just easier to do.
When you're doing like the scary shit, are you into more like sampling kind of stuff, or you tend to be more
I
like,
I like making the air wiggle, man. Like I try to put everything through a speaker. I,
hell yeah.
I'm a big fan of like just putting stuff through guitar amps and just turning the dials till it feels right. Um, so no, like I do stuff in the box like with East West samples a lot, like especially for Chapter 51 because this was old Hollywood stuff. Like we needed big string sections and big horn sections, and it's an indie movie, so it's not like I wasn't going to go get the Philharmonic. So in that way, I would do a lot of sampling, but even then, I'd still run it through an amp half the time because I just like how it sounds.
Awesome. And since your background, you've kind of come into this very organically. Like you didn't go to school for film scoring, yet like mentored
Yeah,
by like one of Hans Zimmer's guys. Did
yeah.
you ever find you made like any mistakes early on that you kind of learned from? Like what was that process like for you?
I think I'm just constantly making mistakes, and I think most people are. But at least I think the best thing about having not gone to school for it is, I wasn't taught to write music for film by someone who was taught to write music for film by someone, blah, 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 in that environment. And like, that's a perfectly good way to learn how to do this. I'm sure I would be smarter in some ways, but what I can offer that some people can't is the 10 years on the road playing in front of audiences. And that it wasn't just rock and roll. Like I was in like experimental synth bands. I was in country bands. I was in folk bands. Like I did a lot of things, played a lot of different instruments, and just like got a handle on um, just where emotion kind of lurks in songs. And I think the multi-instrumentalist thing helped a lot because, you know, look at this, there's rooms full of instruments and I can make a lot of racket with all of them, you know? But I don't know. Look, I always think like, would I be smarter if I went to school for this? I don't know.
I think from my perspective of just kind of listening to a little bit of your stuff and talking to you, I think the live performance actually helps you with the way you're thinking, like, well, how an audience would react to this versus just like, I'm making cool shit. Like,
yeah, like, cause that's the one is like, you always got to think like, this is storytelling. You got to think about the final step. You know, it's like, that's the person in the crowd at your show. It's the person in the theater on their couch watching this movie, you know? Yeah, I don't know, man.
Awesome. Are there any cool projects you're working on now or anything coming up?
Yeah, I'm doing that pilot right now, which has been really fun. And then I'm producing a couple records that I think I'll put out this year, either under my name or the band. I got a lot of songs that once I'm done this pilot, I'll start thinking about. But really, I just can't believe this movie is going to come out in the world, man. June 23rd. So it'll be like video on demand, like you can rent it. Because I've been trying to explain this movie to people for like 2 years, and now I don't have to. And I was like, just watch it. You'll either like it or you won't, but it's pretty entertaining.
I know. I think that was the first thing you said to me is like, when you hear the story behind the production, like that alone is.
Like, I think this number is real. I don't think there was a day that had more than 8 crew members.
Wow.
And like, you ever been on like a small set? Like, sometimes there's like 80 crew members, and it's just like, but that was the thing is like, the day I showed up, I was just my friend of a friend, and then all of a sudden he's like, "Can you move that light?" I was like, "Of course I can move a light." He's like, "Can you run sound?" I was like, "Of course I can run sound." But then you'd have like Abigail Breslin, who's this beautiful actor and a lovely lady, doing her scene, and then she's moving a mic stand right after because it was just like this was like just team effort. Everyone really cared about this, treated it with respect and enough curiosity to make this crazy piece of art that no one will ever make a movie like this again. You can't. You wouldn't. You shouldn't.
That's awesome, man. For anyone who wants to find you or follow you along after this, what's the best way?
Oh yeah, Neuman Jody Mannas is like Instagram, and that's probably the best spot to be honest. Like that's where I'm posting most things. So just aim there.
Beautiful. And was there any other bands besides the Skeleton that you want to plug?
If you want some freaky electronic music, I go by Voldo Blanca sometimes, but the Skeletons are more like we put out a lot more music.
Awesome, dude. This was great. Thank you so much for joining today.
Dude, appreciate you having me.